This is still. Okay, I'll do.
Okay, sure.
I'll start.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gaurav, and I'm joined by my teammates Ninad and Reem. And we were working on an environmental project, as everyone, I guess, should be working on. But specifically, we're working with SAR data and analyzing some of the satellite images that you get from various satellites and seeing the inundation mapping in Peru. So this is the general outline for the presentation. We'll start with the objectives. We'll dive a little bit into the area that we're looking at, which is Pacaya area. Then we'll talk about the live on-site measurements, that the data that we're getting from there, which Professor McDonald actually went in August and installed all the sensors there. And then we'll talk about the satellite data that we're also using. And then we'll talk about some of the analysis using Google Earth Engine, QGIS, Snap, and then we'll talk finally about what we saw, the observations, and talk about what the next steps are. So the overall project that we're trying to support through this environmental project is the NISAR mission, which is tasked with mapping surface inundation with 80% classification accuracy. And that's kind of the big objective that we're trying to support. But as students who are learning, we're trying to support that mission by doing a comparison for the inundation mapping from satellites, which are Sentinel-1 and ALOS Pulsar. And as part of that, to build kind of a data pipeline to help with the validation process when the NISAR satellite goes up, which is sometime next year. The region on the study is the Pacaya Samaria region, which is in a region of Peru called Loreto, and it spans a bunch of 21,000 square kilometers. Specifically, it has a type of physical process that we're interested in, which is an area of low hills with a seasonally flooded forest. So basically, we have like a monsoon, it floods, and then the water recedes for part of the year. It has a lot of rich biodiversity, so a lot of scientists actually do end up studying this area. It's close to equators, probably butchering the name, but yeah, it takes a while to get there. So this is kind of the overall classification workflow that Professor Kyle is working on. And like the three main pieces that we're focused on is the in situ inundation, the derived surface structure, and the inundation maps from NISAR. We don't have the maps from NISAR yet because the satellite hasn't gone up, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Next one. So yeah, so I'll start with talking about the in situ or on-site measurements that we're getting and what we did to analyze the data. In Pacaya area, Professor made a trip in August. He and his team installed 3 types of sensors: water depth, soil moisture, temperature, which are both soil and air. It's all of these sensors are based out of a ranger station that's on the Pacaya River. And you can see that these sensors are installed along 3 transects. And this is kind of a zoomed in. It doesn't tell you exactly. It's hard to see exactly where this is on the map, but it's on the Pacaya River, which was maybe visible earlier. And that's the ranger station that it was based out of. The high-level installation of these sensors is you have these nodes and sensors that are basically sitting on trees, under the ground, everywhere, basically. And it connects to a server that's hosted on the radio station. And it has Starlink to upload. It basically writes to a local database on the server and then uploads this data periodically to an AWS bucket for us to access using Starlink. This is just a picture, just to give you a little bit of an idea. We have water depth sensors that some of them are mounted on trees, some of them are in the river. There's not a picture of that, but we also have soil moisture and temperature sensors that are installed either on the ground or under it. In addition to the in situ data coming in, we had field notes that the professor had taken, and we essentially needed to join the data that we were getting from the sensors, which was a Postgres database, and join it with the field notes, which was just like an Excel file. We used dash plotly matplotlib to generate essentially a dynamic table to visualize the time series of the individual sensors. And we uploaded the code to GitHub, so you can look at it if you're interested. I actually, at this point, wanted to show you the tool because it's local, but I think it might be complicated to share.
I need to stop sharing from here and you want to share from here.
Okay.
Because,
You need a hand?
I think we are.
You need to share your screen.
Or, yeah, I think.
You can see it?
Yeah.
Where?
See.
Where?
It was showing up.
I got it. Okay.
It is?
Yeah. Okay, so this is the tool we built. It's basically using the data dump that we have from the server in Peru. And basically it loads up so this is just the river depth because this is at the Ranger dock that we saw the photo of. And you can see, you can kind of see the river level increasing as the days are passing. The other sensor that's kind of interesting to inspect is the soil moisture. Let's see if this one works. Oops. Some of the sensors aren't working. Oh, okay, there we go. The spikes that you see are actually rainfall events, which is kind of interesting to see because we're sitting here in New York and we can tell how it's raining or what's happening down there. So this was part of the process of building the data pipeline. I'll hand it off to Reem to talk. Sorry, Ninad to talk about the satellite data. And I'll go back to share mode.
Oh, right there. All right.
Okay,
Did it.
yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about NISAR. So NISAR essentially is a joint mission between NASA and ISRO, which is the Indian Space Research Organization. And what is SAR, synthetic aperture radar? So SAR is basically a remote sensing technology that uses the microwave band, which can be seen over there, of the electromagnetic spectrum, and it transmits the microwave signals from the antenna and then receives back the signals after they're backscattered from the Earth's surface to generate high resolution images. They specifically use the microwave spectrum because their wavelengths allow the SAR sensors for just the right amount of penetration through obstacles such as clouds, fog, dust, and vegetation covers. NISAR would become the first satellite to collect radar data in both L-band and S-band wavelengths right here. So it's like dual frequency, first of its kind. And it's going to be launched sometime next year, I believe in June. April.
March, April,
April.
depends on how testing.
So it's going to be launched very soon, basically. Next one. Yeah.
We can't see the slides.
What was that?
We don't have the slides in the presentation. It's not shared again.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 You need to pull that back over.
Oh, it was showing up.
it's showing up, but it's not shared.
I see.
Share screen 2. Actually, you've got the streams and
This is the speaker.
Yeah.
It looks like
Oh, like.
Alexa.
oh,
Looks like Alexa.
Do you have it?
I have Google. Google Home.
No, it's yes.
Why? Security.
okay,
issues.
you see it now, Catherine?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
So did you see the previous slide or no?
No,
Okay, yeah, so, yeah, I was referring to this one, I talked about the NISAR mission. But yeah, it shows the microwave electromagnetic spectrum over there, I just wanted to give everybody an idea of like why we use the microwave spectrum as opposed to infrared or radio frequencies. And that's about it, and then we can go to the next slide. And then for this project, we used the C and L bands, because they both allow certain amounts of vegetation penetration. The L band actually allows for more penetration than the C band and is even less affected by clouds and rains. The S band or the P band would have been nice too, but we didn't have enough data sets for the area and time period under consideration. ALOS Pulsar operates with the L band, and then Sentinel-1 operates with the C band, as we will see later on. And then we come to the topic of polarizations. Broadly speaking, the polarizations can be broadly categorized into two. Copolarization and cross-polarization. And this basically talks about the orientation of radar signals from both the transmitting and the receiving antennas. Hence, these can be further categorized into combinations of vertical and horizontal polarizations, namely VV, HH, HV, and VH. And then in our conclusion, we will go over which polarizations perform best for our specific project and why. This is just some quick specs about the two satellites that we use, Sentinel-1 and ALOS Pulsar 2. I just highlighted those because we used VV and VH polarizations for Sentinel-1, and then we used the horizontal, aka HH polarization for ALOS Pulsar. This is essentially just a time series animation. So our period of data collection was from January of 2023 to October of 2023. And these pictures were all taken from the Sentinel-1 data set. And just like a quick note, so the smoother surfaces lead to less backscatter, hence less backscatter leads to darker spots. And open water is considered to be a relatively smooth surface. Hence, we see over here that the open water or inundated regions appear darker. Okay, next slide. This is just like a zoomed in version of a high inundated period. So this was taken on April 1st, 2023. And then when we compare this picture, just especially focus on like this region. Then if you go to the next slide, you see there's clearly lesser darker spots over here versus the previous one. So this one, low inundation, this was taken on August of 2023. So we see that in April of 2023, we had higher inundation, like more flooding, and we had low inundation on August. So that's just like a comparison. And this one essentially kind of just shows the thresholding technique that we use, which Reem will go over in more details later. But broadly speaking, so the ones on the left, these were generated using Google Earth Engine. The ones on the right were generated using Snap. And all we're trying to show over here is that you can see how for the high inundation period, there is like more of a continuum. So the higher peak relates to land mass and the lower peak relates to water mass in both. And whenever there's high inundation, the demarcation between the land and the water is less visible versus when there's low inundation. And over there, I differentiated between VV and VH polarization. Because backscatter is less in terms of VH than VV, we see that the peaks are also like more demarcated for VH than for VV. This is just the same as the previous images. High inundation on the left-hand side, low inundation on the right-hand side, April versus August, both using VV polarization. We can see that there is less water over there, there is more water over here. This is also the same stuff. The previous images were generated using Google Earth Engine. These were generated using Snap, and we just use false coloring. Blue relates to the darker parts, aka water, and then green is land. This is also generated using Snap. I just wanted to show the difference between VV polarization over here versus VH polarization. Remember how I said that VV has more backscatter than VH, so VV would generate lesser dark parts than VH. So that's basically what this one is showing. If you look at these circle areas, so over here, this is false color, so blue relates to the black regions. So if you look at the circled areas, you would see for VH, there's more blue versus for VV, and that's because VH has less backscatter than VV, and hence it has more darker areas. That's about it. I'll hand it over to Reem.
Thank you. As Ninaz mentioned, we use Sentinel-1 in order to get the VV and VH images, and in ALOS Pulsar, here we use the same area of interest, but of course different code in order to generate the images. We first defined our area of interest, then we filtered the ALOS Pulsar SAR image collection by narrowing down the collection based on both our area of interest and the date range we are studying, and then we calculated the backscattered values in decibels. And in order to focus on our analysis on the specified area of interest, we perform a region of clipping to our area in order just to have the data of the area we need. And then we compute the charts, the histograms of backscattered values in order to separate the HH and the HV data. And then we apply the UTSU thresholding method to the histogram of the HH band, because as Nina said, we focused on the HH band, and this technique helps us in determining the optimal threshold value to distinguish between the different classes and the trends that's showing between the high water and the low water. And finally, we did masking for the threshold with the images that Nina showed, and I'll be showing for ALOS Pulsar as well. So this is another false color, but for ALOS Pulsar, we use the HH, HV, and then HH in the bands in order to see when you can see the high water but low vegetation in the high inundation season, with low inundation or low water with high inundation when we are in the summer season. And you can see it clearly in these images. And the same thing that we did for Sentinel-1, we did for ALOS Pulsar using Snap, using QGIS, and using Google Earth Engine. As Ninat said, it's the same here in ALOS Pulsar, how the peaks are different in low inundation and in high inundation as well. These are from Snap, these are from Google Earth Engine for different season, high inundation and low inundation, in order to get the images of the thresholding, and these are the images. You can see clearly the difference between the results of Sentinel-1 and ALOS Pulsar, the difference in the water and the water presence. Here is the difference in the high and the low, and here you can see the extent of water. There in the low inundation, we have less water. In addition to the in situ measurements that Graf talked about and the inundation maps that Ninad and I talked about, we received another thing, which is the airborne drone images of a specific region. It's not for the whole region we are studying, it's just a small region, in order to study the surface structure characterization of the area. This image, this tracer image, we processed it in QGIS in order to get the digital terrain model, digital surface model, and the canopy height model. The digital terrain model, it's basically used for the bare earth terrain by excluding the above ground objects. However, DCM model, it provides a more comprehensive representation of the Earth's surface, both the natural and the man-made feature, and the canopy, it's the difference between the digital terrain and the digital surface model. That's why we did the contour layers in QGIS, and you can see the difference in elevation between the three models. This is just a snapshot from our Jupyter Notebook code, which it provides the same thing of the image and the histograms in order to get the thresholding of the data we have. For the observations and comparison, we observed that there's a notable pattern of high inundation from January to April, followed by a period of low inundation between July and September. Surprisingly, that the overall inundation levels for the entire year for 2013 remained relatively low. Also, an essential aspect to consider is the challenge posed by the lack of consistent time series of ALICE Pulsar, knowing that ALICE Pulsar provides more detailed images. However, we don't have it for a consecutive time. Sentinel-1 was every 2 weeks. However, we faced this problem with ALICE Pulsar. It wasn't, some weeks we have, some months we don't have. And also in our analysis, we found that the HH polarization plays a great role in the analysis. It interacts more strongly with the water surface, yielding clearly a radar return compared to VV and the VH, and it demonstrates a lower backscatter from the vegetation in contrast to the VV polarization. And another noteworthy advantage is the reduction of speckle noise. HH polarization helps us achieve a clearer and more accurate signal by minimizing the unwanted noise in our radar returns. Finally, as we look towards the future steps in our research, our immediate focus is on validating the capabilities of the NISAR system, which involves a detailed examination to confirm its accuracy in detecting the inundation events. We are committed to meeting and exceeding the prototyping requirements we've set. Second step is that one of the key techniques in our methodology, it involves utilizing advanced algorithms within Jupyter Notebook. We want to work more into our code, and in order to further enhance our understanding, we are integrating more or both satellite and in situ measurements into hydrological model. And our effort to improve the in-situ data visualization dashboard is underway. This enhancement includes overlaying the sensors into the geographical location, providing a more comprehensive and informative display. And we will be comparing the in-situ data with the digital surface model that we shared. We will be able to get, hopefully from Professor Kyle, more drone images in order to have the analysis for the whole area, and we hope to do the contouring for all the areas and compare it and overlay it with the inundation analysis. And that's it. Thank you.
You have time for questions?
I see the chat, looks like there's a question there.